You raised a really good point about Black voters being expected to basically carry the burden of electoral hopes. And we see that across industries and even outside of elections, right? It's Black creatives are asked about, can you comment on the state of diversity in Hollywood? And it's, everyone should be asked these questions and should go to the polls. But as you mentioned, voter suppression, obviously 300 is a very high number. Are there specific cases that you are especially worried about at this point in time in early September that Black Voters Matter is addressing and trying to undo as we head faster towards November?
Some of this, I think there are a couple of things. I think one of what we've seen just happen, which is a cumulative over the last decade, quite frankly, is literally the chipping away of voting rights protections in this country. And so part of what we have been doing and continue to do is to educate and actually advocate around we need stronger voting rights protection in this country. And in the form of, there are two laws that we want to see passed. It's the John Lewis Voter Advancement Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. And we've been doing a lot of work to lift up and educate people around those pieces of legislation and actually push and want folks to literally think about who is going to support to making sure that there is Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris has made a commitment that if she is elected, those are two pieces of legislation she will sign, right? And so that's really important to us because what we have seen is like death by 1,000 cuts. We've seen these different laws passed that I'll give an example of just here in the state of Georgia, which is my home state, that right after the 2022 election, what we saw is the passage of a bill called Senate Bill 202. In that bill, it does a number of things. It criminalizes groups that are at where people are standing in line for 2, 3, 4 hours. We were at a site one night that people stayed in line. The last person voted at 12:37 a.m. in the morning, Wednesday. Right. So to that kind of egregiousness around people standing in line for hours, we would provide in other groups water or pizza or chairs, just what we call comfort care. And so that has become illegal in the state of Georgia. Just to give someone a bottle of water is now illegal and literally it's considered a felony. That at the end of the day, what we're also seeing is that using absentee ballot boxes, that voting boxes, that literally that was very effective. It came about, or at least expanded right after, during Katrina. I mean, Lord Jesus. The use of ballot boxes expanded during COVID. And so it was very effective for rural areas, for people with disabilities, with people who don't have traditional work hours, that was very effective. And so what this bill did, it essentially says, wait a minute, this worked a little bit too well. So now what we're going to do is reduce the number. We're going to reduce the thing that actually worked. And we're only going to have one box every 100,000 people, which that in itself impacts rural areas, which fundamentally the whole idea was to create in the state of Georgia. It was created and lifted by Republicans who wanted to make sure that their constituents in rural areas had the opportunity, right? But as it expanded and people used it during COVID, that it became then all of a sudden, now it doesn't have the same level of importance, and there's been a change because it was effective. And so we're seeing this all over the place. Everything from, I think a most recent issue of concern is in the state of Georgia in this last month. What we've seen legislation crop up that gives the Republican Party in the state of Georgia, it gives them the power to certify or to delay the certification of results. This is the same. So if an election official sees the results and say, it's something about this I just don't like, or something I don't think, it delays the process. So now it creates a process that literally our election results may not get certified timely. That all of that creates this air of suspicion. All this creates this air of confusion and allows itself, in terms of election deniers, can actually utilize that moment. And so we're fearful of that because this is the same state that President Trump wanted to find 11,000 votes. With this in place, it actually creates an opportunity to make it easier to buy time to find those votes. And so those are the kinds of things. And I think what you see is on both sides. I think that there are Republicans and Democrats in Georgia that are actually questioning whether that was a good move in terms of protecting democracy and the integrity of the election.